and gentlemen, thanks for joining us once again. Hudson County View, live and uncut. And I'm your host for What You See is What You Get, and What You Don't is Better Yet, John R. Hydus. And of course, another busy week in Hudson County. No shortage of news this time around, as usual. So first of all, the big story this week is the latest between CarePoint Health and Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health. Of course, you guys remember back in October, it appeared that Robert Wood Johnson was going to purchase Christ Hospital in Jersey City and the Hoboken Medical Center, of course in Hoboken. Now those negotiations have hit a snag, and a state monitor has been appointed in Jersey City. So we're going to tell you all about that, as well as a breaking development that may have happened just within the past few hours. On top of that, we're also going to discuss a pilot audit, that is payment in lieu of taxes audit, also in Jersey City. Mayor Stephen Fulop announced the other day that all 178 pilot deals issued by Jersey City in the past 30 years will be reviewed by an auditing firm that will be selected by the City Council in the coming weeks. So we want to tell you about that. We're also going to talk about the latest parking permit and fee increases in Hoboken in the midst of what could be up to a $14 million budget deficit. So my colleague Mark Bucinich, who was there, will be telling us about that, and I, of course, will weigh in as well. And on top of that, just two quick hits that we wanted to make sure that we got out to the viewers. First of all, we want to congratulate North Bergen Police Chief Robert Dowd on 26.5 years of service. He will be retiring in May, and he will be succeeded by Deputy Chief Peter Facilis, so congratulations to Mr. Facilis. On top of that, we'd also like to extend a congratulations to Bayonne Assemblyman Nick Chavalati, who will serve as the majority whip in the New Jersey State Assembly in 2020. So with that, we're going to take our first commercial break. We'll be right back.
It takes more than a state-of-the-art medical facility to make a great hospital. It takes a team of dedicated medical professionals. That's the Jersey City Medical Center, Hudson County's #1 hospital. Medical teams consisting of New Jersey's top doctors, Magnet Award-winning nurses, and accomplished hospital associates, all committed to your good health. That's what you have at the Jersey City Medical Center. Make Hudson County's #1 hospital your first choice. Visit us on the web at barnabashealth.org. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in 10 high-rise rental towers with amenities such as the on-site Newport Path subway, light rail and ferry service, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams Supermarket is just outside your front door. A health and fitness club, spa, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. NewportNJ.com. Enjoy the New York skyline from Newport Town Square. Manhattan is just one path stop away or quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Want to visit Newport? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. Go to NewportNJ.com for details. Newport has luxurious towers, great restaurants, shopping, New York skyline views, schools, playgrounds, a marina and yacht club, gym, spa, fine wine, fine living. It's incredible. It's you. NewportNJ.com. Newport. Live like you want.
Hudson County View, live and uncut. John R. Hydus, joined with Mark Bucinich. Mark, always nice to see you.
Great to see you again, John.
So, Mark, obviously, it's been quite a week in the healthcare industry here in Hudson County. This whole debacle between Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas and CarePoint, well, it really seemed like it's all come to a head. Obviously, we weren't expecting any of this coming into this week, and just out of the blue, seemingly, Mayor Stephen Fulop sent a letter off to Governor Murphy urging really for state intervention. I mean, you remember perhaps that he said, it's been brought to my attention that Christ Hospital and Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas are at an impasse, and it appears that the closing of Christ Hospital in Jersey City may be imminent. Should a closure occur, thousands of our residents may abruptly lose access to health care that has been available for generations. Furthermore, more than 1,000 employees and their families face the prospect of losing employment. So the governor's office has, in response, appointed a state monitor, which is not something you see often, to oversee the finances of not just Christ, but also the ability to look at the other 2 hospitals, the Bayonne and the Hoboken Medical Centers, respectively.
Sure.
So obviously a very big development this week, Mark. What's your hot take on that?
Yeah, I mean, this saga's been going on for a little bit while, John. I mean, at first, Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas proposed to buy both Christ Hospital and Hoboken University Medical Center and CarePoint, but then they turned around and said that CarePoint was dropping out of negotiations, but then CarePoint in turn said, no, that their intentions were good, or they were involved in good faith negotiations to sell those two properties, but as you said right at the beginning of your segment, you said that you've learned some new developments.
Correct, Mark. But before we get to that, let's just stay linear for a moment. So, after that letter from the mayor to the governor, and after, and before we heard from the governor's office, we actually heard from Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health, who claimed that the owners of CarePoint Health have very recently rejected Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health's fair and appropriate offer for the acquisition of Christ Hospital and Hoboken University Medical Center. And in response, you saw CarePoint said, well, we're happy to go back to the negotiating table anytime, and we have not basically pulled the plug on this thing. Of course, I'm paraphrasing on that one. So obviously these two sides could be further apart. I think that's pretty reasonable to say, right?
It sure is, John. I mean, and also we can't forget that CarePoint is also the owner of the Bayonne Hospital, Bayonne Medical Center, and there's been some obviously some disagreement about the sale over that particular facility. And you, of course, attended that press conference where Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis was in attendance with state and local leaders, or assembly members, I should say, calling on CarePoint to make sure that they didn't sell off the Bayonne Medical Center.
Yeah, I mean, in the middle of all this, there's also, it's kind of like a three-way dance, as I like to call it sometimes. So you have this fight going on, but meanwhile, you have CarePoint in a slugfest with Alaris Health. Avery Eisenrich is a 25% owner in Christ Hospital, and he also owns the Alaris Health nursing home chains. And of course, a lot of people in Bayonne are pushing back against the possibility of the medical center being turned into nursing home.
Right.
So obviously that's a side plot, if you want to call it that, in the midst of this bigger fight here, where people are concerned about hospitals closing. So certainly with the urban population around here, that would be a big hit for Bayonne, Jersey City, or Hoboken.
It sure would be, and that's exactly what Stephen Phillip tried to express to the governor, right, John? I mean, if those hospital facilities weren't made available to the community, well, it would mean critical healthcare facilities services would not be available to them, and also, of course, it would mean the layoff of maybe 1,000 employees.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, so this is obviously something that it looks like it's a powder keg ready to explode. I mean, this is going to have to come to a crescendo sooner or later, and in all likelihood, it doesn't look like Christ Hospital has a long lifeline. And to my earlier point that you also touched on, Mark,
sure.
We're hearing today that CarePoint has submitted, or at least notified, several members of the state, we'll just leave it at that, that they have intention to close Christ, and they want to declare bankruptcy as soon as next week. So this is something that it looks like it's going to have huge ramifications in the immediate future, Mark.
Well, John, and if that's the case, then I would think that the state would then make a plea to Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas to maybe step in, if that's the case, to be able to take over those facilities. That may be one development we may see.
Certainly that's an option, Mark. And the other thing that I think is important to make sure that the viewers understand is even if you declare bankruptcy, that plan, along with your subsequent plans, must be approved by the New Jersey Department of Health. So it certainly doesn't mean the doomsday scenario, but I don't think many people, if this does come to fruition as I'm expecting it to at this moment, I don't think many people would consider that good news.
So, John, with the state monitor, or the monitor now at Christ Hospital, would that mean, because part of that scenario involves the state making available certain bonding, that's part of the monitoring aspect to it. So would it mean that maybe the state, if not the private sector, in this case Robert Wood Barnabas Johnson, wouldn't take over? The state may have to take it over for a little bit before it's found another possibly private healthcare provider.
I mean, that certainly sounds like a plausible option. I don't want to say that that's definitely right or definitely wrong, but it sounds to me like that's something that could happen. But, at the end of the day, the DOH sounds like they're going to have their hands full and a lot of tough decisions to make in the coming days, weeks, and probably months as well. So certainly this is a developing story. We're going to follow this till the conclusion. And, whatever it's going to be, we'll certainly make sure you're the first to know. So with that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Jersey City Medical Center, you know it for its award-winning life-saving ambulance service. It's also your health hub, with health and wellness locations staffed with certified professionals all through Hudson County. The Jersey City Medical Center, here to help you with your healthy, here when you need us the most. The Jersey City Medical Center. Visit us on the net to learn more. Jersey City Medical Center, Robert Wood Johnson, Barnabas Health Facility. Let's be healthy together.
Good Friend Self-Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer a Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunnelly Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self-Storage. Let us be your good friend.
Hudson County View, live at Uncut. John Arhidis and Mark Bucinich are back. So, Mark, obviously another interesting Hoboken City Council meeting.
That's right.
And, we were expecting a robust discussion, dialogue about parking. Those permit rates have officially gone up.
Sure.
Tickets have gone up. Towing has gone up. What else is new? But there was a big development there that related to the budget that I don't think, I certainly wasn't expecting. I don't know about you, so tell us about it.
Yeah, it was an interesting moment there, John. I mean, when the City Council was discussing these second ordinance readings to raise these parking permit fees for, as you just said, for parking violations, residential parking permit, and towing processing fee. So at that point, Councilman Russo was kind of leading the charge as far as questioning Director Ryan Sharp, who's the director of the Hoboken Parking Utility, about why does the city need to raise these rates. And it was at that moment when Second Ward Councilwoman Tiffany Fisher said that, well, it's been reported, Stephen Marks announced earlier this year that the projected budget deficit would be $7.5 million. But she said, well, not so fast. She said it could be as high as $14 million. And she did not deny that these rates, increasing these parking rates, because Michael Russo has been saying, well, what's the philosophy behind these rates? Is it really to generate revenue? And Second Ward Councilwoman Tiffany Fisher was not hesitant or shy to say, yes, indeed, the need to raise these rates is because the city does need to generate more revenue to pay for its services and capital expenses.
Very good, Mark. Let's let the people see for themselves. Why don't we take a look at this clip that you did?
Sure.
Come to appreciate over time is that the city does very specifically rely on parking revenue to balance its annual budget. And what we're seeing this year is it's not a $7 million deficit. It's potentially closer to $14 million. It's a giant number. And how that gets filled is a number of different sources. One is, and we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, over the course of the night. We'll talk more about it over the coming weeks. There's a lot of eyes on it, trying to figure out what to do, but it's a combination of increasing taxes, a combination of layoffs, a combination of trying to find other ways to cut costs and trying to identify additional revenues. So it's just kind of where we are right now, and using surplus to the extent that we have surplus available to use. So we're in the process of really trying to understand, all of that in the city.
So what was the rationale then?
All right, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Some technical difficulties on the video, but I guess just to recap, so they're talking about the parking permits, and Director of Transportation Ryan Sharp and Mike Russo had that exchange.
They sure did.
And, well, it looked like that was some fun, so tell us a little about that, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Russo was questioning Ryan Sharp about as far as mentioning to Sharp that, well, doesn't the parking utility have a surplus year over year, which Director Sharp said ranges about between $3 to $5 million per year. So Councilman Russo thought, well, why can't the city just take the surplus, some of that money from the surplus, and carry it over to pay for the expenses for the residential parking permit fee without having to raise the rates? But Ryan Sharp was quick to say that, well, ideally, in an ideal world, yes, if every program could generate enough revenue on its own to pay for its own expenses, then fine, yes, that would be sufficient. but in most cases, the parking utility has a history of having to take the revenue that it earns from different products and different programs, and if it's bringing in enough money from, say, one product or one program to cover the expense of another product or program, well, in this case, it has to be able to shore up the residential parking permit fee, because as he stressed with some of the other parking fees that went up, it's been about 10 years, maybe even longer than that, since the residential parking permit fee was increased. And he also said that the parking violation, for example, rates haven't been increased in at least 10 to 15 years. So, for example, just quickly on the parking violation aspect, I mean, most of the parking violations that the city issues is around $45, and so he said it was necessary just to raise that to $5 so that the city is on par with its neighboring city, Jersey City. And even if it is raised to $50, well, that would still be half the price of what drivers experience in New York City.
Yeah, well said, Mark. I mean, I think that's a pretty appropriate and accurate summation of what you wrote and what we produced. So with that in mind, I think it's also an interesting notation that on all three of these votes, it was a 5-4 with Michael Russo, along with his council colleagues, Mike DeFusco, Vanessa Falco, and
Ruben
Ramos all voting no.
Yes.
So, just passing by the bare minimum. And the other part that, we already spoke about for a moment was, let's go into a little more detail about this $14 million. And what Councilwoman Fisher said was, what I've come to appreciate over time is that the city does very specifically rely on parking revenue to balance its annual budget. What we're seeing this year is it's not a $7 million deficit. It's potentially closer to $14 million. It's a giant number. And, later she talked about using surplus to the extent that we have a surplus to use, indicating that most of the surplus has already been spent. So that's where that figure has now doubled. Of course, that's not final, just a preliminary number. The budget has not been introduced yet, but it certainly looks like Hoboken is going to have their hands full this budget season.
It sounds like they ought to be very busy with that, John. I mean, it was interesting that when Councilman Russo was asking Ryan Sharp about these rate increases, at one point, Councilwoman, Tiffany Fisher and Council President Jen Giatino, said to Ryan Sharp, let Michael Russo know, basically, that this is about generating revenue.
Yeah, very good, Mark. All right, so we're going to jump to another commercial. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Panapinto Properties, Jersey City. Shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office space and an address your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment. Adjacent to all modes of transportation. On-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. 201-521-9000 or visit on the web at panapintoproperties.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hudson County View, live and uncut. John Arhitis with Mark Bucinich. So, Mark, I don't think we could proceed until we also address the fact that prior to the council meeting, I believe that was on Tuesday, that Business Administrator Stephen Marks, it was announced, will be now heading to Kearney. So his last day at Hoboken City Hall will be February 16th. So he won't be part of the final budget review. In the interim, they were going to have Jason Freeman, who is the operations manager in the mayor's office, as well as Caleb Stratton, the assistant business administrator, work on the business, split the business administrator roles as they find a new permanent replacement for Stephen Marks. So
That's right.
Certainly an interesting.
And that solicited a response from Michael DeFusco expressing surprise that in the middle of when the budget hasn't even been introduced, that all of a sudden now Stephen Marks has made this announcement.
Well, yeah, I mean, interesting point there, Mark, because as you can see, it seemed like a pretty run-of-the-mill story at the beginning, right?
In the beginning it did, yes.
But shortly thereafter, we saw Councilman DeFusco weigh in, and we saw Vijay Chaudhuri, the city spokesman, weigh in, and we saw Caitlin Mata have her 2 cents, who's a spokesman for Councilman DeFusco, and then Fifth Ward Councilman Phil Cohen also wanted to jump into the fray.
Right.
So, well, things didn't really end so amicably, did they?
No, I don't think they did, John. I mean, they each had, they tried to get the last word in edgewise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. I mean, obviously, a lot of bad blood still brewing on this council, and this whole budget shortfall thing is not making it any easier. So that's a fun read. If you guys haven't checked that one out, you usually don't get that kind of face punching in, in the beginning of February. So you might want to give that a read if you haven't already. So anyway, back to Jersey City. We're going to talk about those pilots over there. We're going to talk about that new review process. So, Mark, you remember that we reported in October, I believe it was, that there was a operational efficiency audit performed. Some people call it a forensic audit done by the Jersey City Board of Education.
That's right.
And they said that millions of dollars was being lost as a result of improper or out-of-date pilot payments from both the city and the Board of Ed. So whether or not you believe that O'Connor Davies study, that's an accounting firm out of New York City, now the mayor has announced that they are going to do their due diligence and they're going to do their own audit and they're going to check on this thing. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, and that audit's going to include, John, right, going back to previous mayors, right? So abatements that were maybe promised before he served his first term. And looks
Yes,
like
well
it's...
before. I mean, I think some are going back as much as 30 years.
Wow, that's significant, John. Indeed, and well, obviously that's causing some of the developers within the city to I guess cry foul for to say, particularly the LaFrac organization, saying that they're disputing the findings, noting that 2 of their 4 properties reviewed were sold years ago, and at least 2 of their pilot agreements ended up costing more than conventional tax payments would have.
Yeah, that was from the old story, yes, but I think it, certainly bared repeating, given that some people disputed the results of that particular audit. And nonetheless, the city council is going to choose from Donahue, Geronda, Doria, and Tompkins LLC, Wilcox and Company LLC, and Hudulik and Morrison PA. So I believe that vote's going to take place at the next council meeting, but I got to double check that. So
that should be an interesting meeting for sure.
I would say so, Mark. I mean, when isn't it? But yes, I would say this one in particular has some interest already. And, interestingly, Ward D Councilman Michael Young decided to weigh in on this topic. And he said this is significant and many years in the making. This is a declaration of Jersey City's independence from the developer class, a signal that the voters are truly in control. As you and I know, and as many of the viewers know, I mean, Michael Young's voted against a lot of these pilot and abatement programs. But it's interesting to see him stand with the mayor on this and a number of other issues in recent memory.
That is very interesting, John. I guess the reasoning why he was maybe opposed to it before, he felt that maybe the abatements weren't. He felt maybe, I guess, the state should be more responsible for the school funding than the funding coming from abatements.
Yeah, perhaps so. Then another thing is, according to Mayor Fulop, this is just the beginning. There's going to be a lot more as what he calls a comprehensive plan to help fund the schools. As we all know, Mayor Fulop has come out in support of a school referendum in November.
That's right.
And he's in favor of an appointed board because he thinks it would give City Hall the oversight they need to select responsible board members and provide proper oversight for the budget. So with that said, he said at the end that over the next few weeks, we intend on presenting a comprehensive plan for immediate and long-term funding to solve the issues facing the schools. We are working hard at finding new revenue and cost savings. We expect the elected Board of Education members to do the same per recommendations from their forensic audit. So once again, it would appear, given that the Board of Education hasn't said a whole ton on this topic, it would appear once again that City Hall and the BOE are at odds, Mark.
It seems that way, John. I mean, it's just another important component to what's been happening with the Jersey City Board of Education budget. I mean, right, it was last April when the Board of Education sued the state, claiming that the state owes, I think what came out to, I think, a total amount of $1 billion because the state or the Board of Education is worried about the adjustment aid cuts that will be coming down the pike. So to try to stave off those adjustment aid cuts, well, the BOE last April, which was a press conference I covered, they made the announcement that they would sue the state for their money. And yet here's another example, another initiative by the mayor realizing that maybe the dire straits of the BOE finances and having to take this action on abatements.
Yeah, so two things real quick before we call it a day here, Mark. First of all, about 3 weeks ago, that lawsuit was in front of Judge Mary Jacobson in Trenton, and that ended up not being dismissed. She kept the thing alive. She said she was going to go through the discovery process, and so we're going to see what we see there. And then on top of that, I think it also bears mentioning that this could be a $150 million budget deficit this year just from school funding for the district. So this is going to be a tough year. So we actually have one more commercial break for you, and then we're going to chat. Just give us a second.
Rama Jewelers, located in the Lyndhurst Shopping Center at 413 Valley Brook Avenue, Lyndhurst. Come for all your jeweler needs at Rama Jewelers, where you will find a fine selection of necklaces, earrings, rings, and bracelets. Choose from one of our complete sets, our many signature items, or find the perfect engagement ring. Come on down. That's Rama Jewelers at 413 Valley Brook Ave, Lyndhurst. Call 201-939-5784 or visit us online today.
Introducing the MyJCMC app, powered by Practice Unite. The free MyJCMC app puts the power of healthcare at your fingertips. Go to the concierge for access to referrals, scheduling, and appointments, see emergency room wait times, and get directions to Jersey City Medical Center health locations. Read the latest JCMC news through their social media feed, find a doctor, and more. The MyJCMC app. We belong to you.
Hudson County View, live at Uncut. John Arhitis with Mark Bucinich. So, Mark, on the non-political side for a moment, we actually had a lot of interesting crime stories this week.
Yes.
Actually, I'll touch on one, no pun intended, briefly, that there was a Bayonne man arrested this week for masturbating in a clothing store right on the front room floor. So that's not one that you see every day. Obviously, there's a lot of commentary on that one. I mean, the jokes just write themselves, so I'll just tell you guys to look at the comments. Check that one out from this morning if you haven't already. But the other one that I wanted to also have a moment to discuss was earlier this week, Mark, the Hudson County Sheriff's Office had a huge drug bust, 737 pounds of marijuana found at a Cardi warehouse, and that's a $1.5 million street value.
That's incredible, John.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see that every day. I mean, some people are not impressed, as you have seen in our time doing this. The commenters are sometimes hard to impress. Some of them have told them to, focus on real crime. Nevertheless, the sheriff seems proud of what they were able to do here.
Yeah.
Simply, this is one of the biggest single marijuana busts in Hudson County history, he said in a statement. Our detective bureau deserves all the credit for an excellent job. I'm proud to have them in my department serving and protecting the people of Hudson County. Pretty straightforward, but
Sure.
as anybody could see in that picture, clearly it looks like due diligence was done. I mean, that looks like
That looks like a pretty big haul, John, for sure. And,
Yeah.
So it looks like a testimony to great police work and confiscating the contraband.
I would say so, Mark. I mean, it seems like certainly due diligence was done, and certainly it looks like a huge deal was broken up. So, obviously that didn't happen by accident. Certainly appears to be nice work by the Hudson County Sheriff's Office. As well, interestingly enough, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, who had a helping hand in this one.
Oh, they played a role in this as well, John. That just then obviously this fine obviously required both entities to be able to secure such a large fine as this.
Yes, correct, Mark. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call it a day. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. On YouTube, so it's like a dot mauve, like whatever comes out of